Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. Today we have the privilege of speaking to Mrs. Beyhum about her unique and insightful journey with ABA. Her son, Seri, who is now 26, has been engaged with ABA practices for some time, and Mrs. Beyhum's experience will provide invaluable insights for many of us. A journey that spans from early days of understanding autism and exploring therapy options to navigating the challenges and rewards of adulthood with the support of ABA. Also, I'd like to mention that Mrs. Beyhum and her son, Seri, are the reasons where I am now professionally in my professional path, because they introduced me to ABA back in 2005. So welcome, Mrs. Beyhum. Yes, you want to take this microphone?
Yeah, or I can shout.
I think. Oh, no, this one?
Yes.
So if you want to begin by sharing with us, how did you first come to know ABA and what drove you to this decision to pursue it with Seri? And if you want to share this with us today.
I do? Okay. Okay. All right. So, mobile this moment. Yeah. Thank you. My God, it's been just listening to all these speakers has been such sort of I want to say a trip down memory lane, but I don't know if memory lane is really the right adjective. I've been asked to share some of my thoughts on ABA as a parent of someone who's been extremely impacted by it. It's always very emotional, but so my son was born in 1997, okay, back when autism was practically unheard of, not even hardly in the world and certainly in our part of the world. And I figured something was off in his behavior at the ripe old age of 11 months. But I couldn't find a single doctor who could tell me exactly what was wrong. They were very happy to tell me what was wrong with me. You're overthinking it. Look at him. He's such a healthy child. But I just knew something was wrong. So finally, when he was 3 years old, he went to UCLA and got the diagnosis. And honestly, that moment felt like a death sentence at the time. I just saw black, and the lady who was in charge of his team at the time, and she still is a world-renowned authority on autism. She told me, listen, hon, there is a 3-day workshop that's going to be held nearby on ABA. It's not for parents, but it's for teachers of children on the spectrum. And I suggest you attend and just get an idea of the sort of behavioral therapy you need to embark on. And I said, okay. And now I can also honestly say that 23 years later, those 3 days changed our entire lives. ABA proved to be scientific, methodical, and consistent. Something that fit very well in my engineering mind. Tasks are broken down and to finite steps, and they're taught in stages until mastery, and then you move on to the next step. So basically, it's just a very effective teaching methodology that works on anyone and everyone because it's based on the most basic human traits of all, motivation, right? When somebody is motivated, someone will learn and someone will execute. The challenge, this applies to every one of us here. The challenge with children on the spectrum is finding that motivation because they can really push that envelope very far. So, motivation. Luckily, at the younger ages, there's that magic potion called sugar, and its more acceptable counterparts called toys. And basically, the motivation comes from these reinforcers And the reinforcers are in themselves graded. So there are things that really pique our interest and our desire, and other things that do, but to a lesser extent. And here lies the power of differential teaching and shaping of the behavior. Now, basically through play and seemingly very natural circumstances, the therapists were able to teach my son everything from turn taking and just attending, imitating, which is so important for children as a tool to learn, to eventually social rules, reasoning, conversing, and many other skills. Now, ABA, what's cool about it is that it can be applied at home, at school, or out in the community. And basically, at first, it's sort of language starts to develop that is consistent with rewarding and encouraging the child, which acts as a great, let's say, guide, not only for siblings, family members, and anyone around the child who at first is not quite sure how to approach the child. And particularly when the child, as in my son's case, has very limited language abilities. And as you can imagine, the programs become much more complicated as you begin to tackle more complex issues. But the beauty of ABA is that it allows for creativity and while being precise and accurate. So I'd like to just kind of describe one of the more interesting ABA programs that we did with my son. And actually, it was the combination of different programs. So one of the things we did, and I think Ms. Sausan just also touched on this, but I have the 101 version of it back when we didn't have any technology. One of the most interesting things was to teach my son how to identify, gauge, and regulate his mood. He used to simmer. So all of a sudden, he'd seem to be very quiet and calm. And all of a sudden, he just erupts into a tantrum. And we used to think, oh, it's the autism, it doesn't make sense. And then upon analyzing the data, which is part of the ABA process, we discovered that no, there were actually triggers, what we call antecedents, that were happening that would sort of agitate him and frustrate him. And then boom, we have, a totally out of control situation. And so we wanted to teach him not only just to capture himself at that stage, but to understand what's going on with him. Well, for him and for us, because it was really, sometimes it becomes just too much to handle as a family. I mean, it disrupts everything and everyone. And so we introduced the emotion wheel. At the time, it was a wheel, nothing. It was a piece of cardboard with an arrow pinned to it. It had happy in green and sad in red. And we would actually, through controlled situations, expose him to both. And we would adjust his responses. Okay, so sometimes we knew better than he knew how he felt. I know it sounds awfully condescending, but it's true. It's just that he did not have the skill to understand what was going on with him. So basically, we were able to start increasing the complexity of this wheel to include things such as frustrated, happy, angry, over the top. And we actually were able to get him to understand what's going on within himself. Now, in parallel, we were teaching him relaxation methods. So squeeze a stress ball, listen to music, ask to be left alone, do some deep breathing. And then there was also a third program that also you touched upon, kind of like a cause and effect program that was, what do you do when? So what do you do when you're cold? You put on a sweater. What do you do when you're sick? You take a medicine. What do you do? What do you do when you what do you do when you want to be happy? I eat cake or whatever it was. And then it was, what do you do when you're frustrated? And it was, squeeze a stress ball, or ask to be left alone, or listen to music, or do your deep breathing. So it was like the three programs, each one was building a skill on its own, and then they came together to really produce something that a lot of humans can do on their own, but actually most can't. And it just brought us so much more peace, but it brought him self-control, and as a result, self-confidence. Of course, always his relaxation of choice was, please, can I be left alone? And now he often says, oh, gee, mom, you look stressed. So I guess it's a good way of just teaching things that many of us feel like come naturally to us, but they don't. They don't necessarily. Now, what I've also experienced, and touching on something you were saying earlier, is that the programs have to remain age appropriate. As the child grows older, the programs have to be age appropriate, and the therapy should not feel patronizing. Okay, targets change, and so should the reinforcers. And M&M at 2 does not have the same effect at 22. And toy trains and dinosaurs, while they're very helpful for many, many years with boys, get replaced with PlayStation time or playing on the iPad or phone, or even just simple social praise becomes extremely rewarding. But as the reinforcers change, so should the spoken and physical language used. So you're right, a hug to a 3-year-old cannot be done to a 16-year-old. Hugs can be replaced with high fives, or wow, good boy can turn, oh, you're so cool, dude, or things like this. And body parts get referred to in their proper biological terms, right? So we're no longer talking about wee-wees and whatever. It's penis. Yes. Anyway, what I've also experienced, and what we all tend to do, is that they are very good, as we all are. You fake it till you make it. And as we discovered as he was getting older, was that there were gaps in his understanding. But now I'm understanding it differently, is that there were not really gaps as much as inferences that we had assumed he would make or he had made, but he hadn't. Okay. And this was particularly true with adolescence, puberty, sexual maturity, and all these, the things that you don't want to talk about. We had diligently taught him everything. But then as he was getting older, we realized there were things he hadn't quite picked up. And the beauty of ABA is, because it's so methodical, is that you can backtrack and actually see where that gap lies. And you don't have to start from the stage 0. You can just pick up from where you feel that maybe something didn't actually click. And while consistency is always key, one must always be wary that if ABA is not done properly, it will lead to robotic kids. Now, robots are great when you're teaching potty training, or you're traveling and you're in an airport and you want certain consistent things. And it makes sense that they become robotic, because think about it, we're just reinforcing that target behavior. We always want him to get there, do this, do that. So you end up with children who just are looking for the right answer all the time, not just to be reinforced, but hopefully at a later age to please you. I mean, they really, most of them do want to please. They want to please the people around them, their parents, their friends, whatever. So I think, and being robotic up to a certain age is great. But of course, as we get older, we all know that we have to start forming opinions and making choices and having conversations, or open-ended conversations. Now, the cool thing is, and the biggest irony is, that there are ABA programs to kind of take you back and deactivate and promote choices and opinions. I'm not going to say that we're totally out of the woods. We as parents, as any parents, we always continue to worry about our children, especially the vulnerable ones. I mean, we just do, right? We're just afraid for them that people will take advantage of, that they will understand the world the way it truly is. But I can very objectively state that ABA has helped us navigate the world in which we were able to teach our son with our great therapists and our wonderful teachers how to read and write, how to converse, how to be a compassionate friend, an athlete, a photographer, an animator, a drums player, an avid traveler, an employee, and overall an absolute joy. He still wants to be the husband slash, what was it? Husband, father. And I keep telling him, he tells me, okay, son-in-law, like he just keeps finding ways. And it's sometimes tough as a parent to explain to them that it's no longer the chips or the activity that we can just magically make appear for themselves, and that they have to make things happen for themselves. But hopefully with ABA, we will continue to be able to do that, because I've seen it applied with adults. Obviously, it's not as clinical, but it's definitely instilled something in us and all our family members, a way to communicate him, to teach him, and to reach him. And I think I must end this speech also by telling you that, yeah, we also tried a lot of other methods, and which we won't even talk about now. But in our case, ABA coupled with speech therapy turned out to be by far the most effective tools. I strongly support having as many ABA therapists in Lebanon and everywhere. And in fact, OpenMinds, one of the NGOs that I'm still extremely active in, we were actually supporting the development and the training of more BCBAs to spread the knowledge, really spread the help. Because I really truly wish every parent of a child with autism can have the benefit of using ABA and learning ABA to benefit themselves and their children, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.